Hey YouTube, Mike the Alpha Hoarder here. Thanks for joining me. Today's video is the first in a series of Q&A videos that I'm doing. I won't do them back to back, but I'll sort of spread them out a bit. And I'm answering questions that my viewers asked as I was approaching 1,000 subscribers. And I thought it'd be fun to go through some of them. Now, in general, I'm going to try to keep the answers a little short so that I can rapid fire through them, but today's is a little bit more involved. It is a question of my origin story. So I had a couple people ask me, how did I get involved in the game? How did I get started with Magic? And how did I get to sort of the place I am today with the hobby? And I figured I would answer that for you today. So sit back. This is a Storytime video. All right, so I started playing Magic in 1995. I was in 5th grade. I remember the first game I played in the back of the classroom. 4th edition was on the shelves in my LGS, as well as Ice Age, Chronicles. My town had a very small game shop, and then it had one little corner with a shelf with Magic up on top. And I don't know, I always had the collector urge, I guess. I took care of my cards, I sorted them regularly, I put them in binders, things like that. And I played, but I played very poorly. I was a 5th grader, so what do you expect? I knew the rules pretty well, but I certainly wasn't playing anything competitive. I didn't know what the tough cards were, nothing like that. But my father took an interest too, very early on. Once I got into the game, my little brother got into the game, and the two of us were playing. And my father's a collector of all sorts of things, numismatics, stamps, minerals. And so he started collecting while my brother and I were playing. And so, that collecting background was always there. He'd show us the sets as he completed them. Things like that. Ooh, Howling Mine. I love this card. I love the art. Looks like the Word of Command monster back in there. Very nice condition. Wow. Awesome start. Can't go wrong with a mine. Or was I? Oh, right. So, he would gift my brother and I sometimes with complete sets that were sort of the detritus of his own collecting. So, he gave me a Fallen Empire set and I think a Homeland set were the two that he gave me back in the day. Much later on, he actually gave me a completed revised set, which I still have. And I played for many years to varying degrees, but near the end of high school, I just sort of fell away from it. The last cards I remember purchasing were from Nemesis. And, at that point, sort of teenage frivolities had me going in other directions. And, I went off to university, everything went in a box. And for a long time, that was that for me. But my father continued collecting sets, keeping up with every new release, and he'd also started working backwards from 4th edition. And he'd occasionally mention his progress to me, but it was largely off my radar. And then in 2010, through my corporate America job that I held at the time, I did my first draft. One of my co-workers organized it, and World Wake was just out. I actually drafted this guy. And when I pulled him, he told me that this guy was the hit of the set, at the time. It was a big deal, I guess. So this was the first Planeswalker I ever saw. And, it was fun, but I didn't really get back into it. Just too much was going on in my life at that point. And around this time, my father also stopped collecting. He complained that they were making too many damn sets a year. And, he was probably right, but better than it is now. So he had 20 years worth of sets put together. He didn't finish Alpha and Beta, but everything after that he had finished. So then not much else happens with my story until sort of 2016, 2017 range. So I honestly can't remember exactly what started it, but somewhere in there I pulled out this old box of cards I had, and I kind of figured, I should sort through these and maybe put a couple of them on display or something, or else I should just throw them out. But I just got them in a box. I never look at them. And so that was the thought process. But almost as soon as I started sorting through them, I got drawn in. I got drawn back in. I was sort of thinking, maybe I'll display my Ice Age set. Well, if I'm going to do that, I suppose I should complete it, whatever. So I started buying cards again. And around then I found Rudy. I was sort of flabbergasted at the cost of the older stuff. I had no idea compared to the last time I'd looked. And, I was putting things into binders and seeking out some of the old cards I could never have. At this point in my life, though, nobody in my orbit played the game. No one was into it, so playing just wasn't on my radar. Ooh, this is nice. I'm not a social media guy either. People sometimes ask me if I'm on Facebook or whatever. I'm not. I do have a profile on there, but I haven't signed into the thing in ages. Every once in a while I'll go on just because someone wants to message me there, usually related to a sale, a deal we're doing, but I'll log in, write the message, and then log back out. I'm never in there. I'm not active. But the point is, I didn't even think about connecting with people on there to play. And at the same time, I started talking to my dad about all this again, because he had all these old cards, and I couldn't believe the prices of these things. And I was sort of telling him, you realize what some of these are worth, What exactly do you have? How far back does it go? And, more than once, he'd sort of mentioned mentioned to me that he wanted to sell the stuff. It had come up over the years. He wasn't really into them anymore, and we never really did anything though. But every few months I'd kind of update him on the prices, and he'd talk about bringing it all to an auction house, but just never really pulled the trigger on it. Ooh, this guy looks awesome. Great centering. Let's see. Oh yeah. Ooh, that's beautiful. Look at that. Blaze of glory. Look at that art. Look at those things. Some kind of, I don't know what. Bird / dog / dragon. Oh, I love that card. So at this point, it's probably, it's 2018. It's got to be 2018. And I'm buying a lot more cards now. I've started buying alpha cards. Not what you're seeing on the channel these days, but I was into it at that point. A lot of unlimited. I think I was heaviest on unlimited at that point. And sometime near the end of 2018, I made contact with Daniel Chang from Vintage Magic. I bought an Alpha 9 tutor from him, and he actually called me. eBay gives you the contact information when you sell to somebody, I guess. So he introduced himself, and in the months that followed, I got deeper into alpha, and I started asking my dad, what exactly do you have? Which alpha cards do you have? Which beta cards do you have? Turns out he had about 2/3 of the alpha set completed. All the commons, a lot of good uncommons, a bunch of rares, no power. He only had one of the alpha duels, but still, he had all the iconic cards in good condition. Beta, he had about 80% of the set complete. And then, he had everything spanning 20 years. And the numbers were just starting to get insane. And, you know, he still wasn't looking at the cards. He was ready to move on with them, and the amount of money we were talking about, you know, tens of thousands of dollars at that point in time, and it's a huge amount of money, you know, especially an older guy, retired, you know, lower middle class couple, him and my mom. So I guess a year later, it must have been 2019, I helped facilitate the sale of his collection through Daniel Chang, who I'd met earlier. Daniel came to my house and met my father and appraised the collection, and actually, you know, arranged to sell it and all that. And almost as soon as that collection sold, my stomach just hit the floor. You see, very late in the process of selling, you know, when we already had numbers. There were even a couple of offers that Daniel was sort of fielding for us. Pretty late in the process, my father had suggested gifting the cards to me, you know, instead of selling them. And, you know, my brother didn't care about the stuff, so he wasn't interested. But, you know, I was pretty strongly back into the hobby at that point, and so he offered it, and he meant it. He, you know, he would have done it, but he would not have accepted any money from me. You know, there's no chance of that. He would have absolutely insisted on it just being a gift. And at the time, I really felt pretty adamant that accepting that was the wrong thing to do. You know, for my parents, the numbers we were looking at, you know, it was more than $50,000. It was absolutely a tremendous amount of money, you know, and, you know, not what you get today for that particular collection, that's for damn sure, but still, he was very excited, you know, to have turned this sort of decades-old hobby into real money, you know? I mean, that's the end zone of every collector's dream, you know what I mean? To have a hobby, and then when you're done with it, it's worth more to someone else. You know, you created value. You had the insight or the foresight or even just the luck, you know? You know the feeling I'm talking about. And I didn't really want to take that from him. Oh, I remember this guy. I put a super low bid on this. I thought it was super low. And I didn't even follow the auction to finish. I do that with cards that are in a little bit more beat up condition, but I was happy to win it for the price I did. Take a look at this guy. But, you know, I didn't want to take that from him. You know, maybe he would have felt just as good gifting it to me. I don't know. Maybe I could have discussed it with him a bit more, but I don't know. I didn't think it was the same, and I didn't think it would do justice to what he'd done all those years of building the sets and, you know, being in the hobby when I had abandoned it. And, you know, he wouldn't have accepted my money. He deserved to complete that arc that he had started, you know, back in the 90s, and to actually get some profit from something that had been a non-trivial part of his life, you know, pursuing all these cards. And he used to submit it through the catalogs. You know, you pull the order sheet out of the back and write in what you wanted and everything. But man, I gotta tell you, the regret at watching those cards go was pretty unbearable. I'm not sure how to explain it, but at that point, I had formed sort of my investing goals as far as getting into collectibles and treating them as an alternative asset. And I had started moving pretty heavy into alpha and beta at that time, as well as some vintage sealed stuff. But the combination of this regret and not just somehow convincing him to take my money instead, and, you know, keep these cards in the family, but not as a gift. It left me on a sort of tilt. And then, you know, right after this was the end of 2019 we did this, and right after this, the pandemic starts. And all of a sudden, all these cards are on sale. And it was the combination of those two things hitting, you know, this sort of letting these cards go, and then seeing the market suddenly drop and become more accessible than it had been. this caused me to stop accumulating all the other sets. I stopped the moves I was doing in Unlimited and Beta. I stopped accumulating Vintage Sealed. And I just started buying Alpha. And I've been in that gear ever since. And I expect to be in that gear, you know, a bit longer yet. Other people have asked me what my collecting goals are. I do have some collecting goals. They are not quite as rigid as they probably should be. It's roughly a certain number of common sets, uncommon sets, and rare sets that I want to have, and I sort of chose those numbers to land on a certain percent of my net worth. But you know, price movements have kind of made that an imperfect blueprint. I'll address that in a different video, but in any case, that's the road I've been driving on. And that's how I ended up becoming an Alpha Hoarder. So yeah, that's my story. I hope it wasn't too boring. I'm curious to see if people enjoy this kind of thing, or if it's going to be off the mark. But in any case, yeah, that's how I became the hoarder that I am today. I'll look at one more card and we will call it Blessing. Blessing and Farmstead, I think, are the two easiest rares to get in just perfect condition. Yeah, I mean, you really can't say that about almost any Alpha card, but I have just seen Blessings and Farmsteads with excellent centering, all around mint cards, and both of those are on the cheaper side. You can get a card like this between $800 and $1,200. And you know, for a gem mint rare, that's not too bad. Alright, well, thanks again everyone who supports the channel, you know, with your time and your attention. The two most valuable assets any of us possess. I truly am humbled and grateful. And, you know, let me know if you enjoy the story time sort of stuff, or if I should stick to the other questions, because I did get a mix. I got, you know, a lot of sort of the financial and opinion questions, and then I got a handful of the about me questions, and I'm happy to go either way. Don't have a strong feeling on that, so let me know what you like. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching today's video. If you want to help me grow this channel, I would really appreciate the simple and free gesture of you kneeling and swearing fealty to my banner, to be summoned to arms in times of strife, where you can help me conquer my enemies on the battlefield. See you next time.